So, by far the most mentioned, appreciated tool that I use in D2L is the checklist tool. It requires a lot of extra work on the part of the instructor or the mentor, but the students find it really, really helpful. So I'm just going to show you how I use that tool. There are lots of different ways to use it, but I'm going to show you how I use it in one of my classes. So the tool can be accessed by going through activities. So you go up to the menu. This is called the navigation bar, this darker green bar, and you click on activities, and that pulls the drop-down menu, and that takes you to the checklist tool. So that's how you get to the checklist tool. But first I'm going to show you what the checklist tool looks like for the students and why they like it. So I create my checklists, and I put them in a few different places. I have actually created a widget on my homepage where I've created links to each of the week checklists. You could also, if you're making checklists for the class, I think it would be great to link the checklists in your news for each week. So if you do a news update each week, that would be a great place to put the checklist. When my students open a checklist, here's what it looks like. So you click to open it, and then it has this great little list of things that are due and when. And in the checklist tool, you can create links to course files. Now that's getting pretty fancy. You certainly don't have to do that. But it shows you how robust this tool is. So this shows students that this week they need to read the overviews and objectives by this time and this date. And if they click on this link, it will take them right to that tool, or to that course file. They need to read the course texts by Tuesday at midnight, and it will take them right to that course file if they click here. And it gives them these little check boxes so they can check it off when they've done it. So that's what the checklist looks like. So it shows them everything they need to do for the week and the due date for when they need to do it. I include links to the course files. Again, you don't have to do that. That's getting pretty fancy, and it's very time consuming. So don't feel like you need to do that, but you can do that. So now I'm going to show you how to use the tool. So again, to get to the tool, use the navigation bar, click on activities, get the drop-down menu, go to checklist. Then you click new checklist to make a checklist, and you give it a name, and you save it. And from there, you can create categories and items. Categories are things like, if you may have noticed on mine, to read, to write, to turn in, to do, to discuss. And items are the actual things that they need to do within those categories. In order to create items, you have to have categories. So I'm going to create a category. And if you want to make it simple, you can just make one category and say, do this week, or something like that. This is just to show you an example. So once you've done that, you can create new items. And it'll ask you which category to put it in. I just have one category, so we're just going to leave it in that one. And I'm going to say, introduce yourself to the class. This is an example of something you might do. And you could put a description in here if you want to. You don't have to. And then the due date. So it's really important to pay attention to the time on these due dates, because if you have a whole bunch of different times that things are due, students will get really confused. Students tend to be quite literal in online classes, so the more precise and clear you can be about things, the fewer emails you're going to get saying, hey, the thing that was due on Tuesday last week was due at 5:45, but this week it's due at 10:25. So just be consistent, be clear, and be precise. So you put in the due date, and you can also link the checklist to the calendar if your instructor or your mentor shell has a calendar widget. That way, as things become due from the checklist, it automatically shows up on that course homepage. So that's always a good thing to do. So you can either save it and be done, or you can do save and new, and it'll open up another item for you to do. So let's do one more item. We're going to say fill out the survey. So again, here, if you want to do a description, this is where you can provide links to actual course files. So I'm just going to sort of make one up here. I'm going to go to course content, and I'm going to just grab a file here. So I made a link to an actual file in course content. Again, super fancy. Don't feel like you need to do this. You can make these really simple if you want to. And again, I'm going to be really clear about that due date. And I am going to display it in the calendar, and then I'm going to click Save. So now I'm going to save and close this checklist, and now I can see from this checklist tool, here's my test checklist. And when I open it, this is what is on the checklist. The introduce yourself to class, the fill out the survey. So then when I go to, when the student can access the checklist through activities, probably a better way, again, for you to get it to them, because as you can see, it's kind of buried in this tool. This navigation bar can be really tricky for students to figure out. I think it's a lot better to deliver some of these tools to them using the news or even email or course content, because those are a little bit easier to find and they're a little bit more intuitive, I think, for the students to use, rather than looking up here on this navigation bar trying to find hidden tools that they may or may not know about. So, so let's create a news item. So we'll go to new news item, and we'll say week 1 checklist here. And so I say, here's the checklist, and then I create a link to that checklist, and there it is, and I publish it. And that way, it's an easy way. The students know, especially if you have told them, which you should, I post things in the news every week for you. Here's where you can find the checklist each week. I do it on Mondays at 9 a.m. After then, you can always find it. So consistently telling them when it's going to be there, and having a regular time where they can expect to find things, and letting them know where to find things. So they go to the news that day and click on that, and there's their checklist, and they can access it anytime from there. So that's how I use the checklist. It's a great tool. Like I said, you can make it really simple by just having one category and not including any links. That just tells them what to do, and then they know to find that information, they actually have to go to course content. Or if you want to get a little fancier, you can create links from course content into the checklist so they can just access it straight from the checklist. The downside to that is that sometimes the links will be broken, and they'll go to click on something, it'll take them to the wrong place, or it won't take them anywhere, and that can be frustrating for them. The other downside is that students can become dependent on the checklist then, and so if the instructor makes changes in course content and you're not aware of it, that can lead students astray. So I would say the simpler the better, and to make these checklists probably not all ahead of time, because like I said, if the instructor changes due dates or changes something, that can be really confusing to the student. So you want to make sure that the checklists are really up to date. So anyway, that's how I use them. Good luck, and if you ever need help with any of these tools, the help desk at OAI is very good about meeting with people one-on-one and offering resources to help with these tools.